In the last lecture, we stopped at the web application threads. We have gone for discussion of each and every web application that was listed here. Today, we'll move on to the main important topic of our course uh, topic, that is web application pen testing. So, as a penetration tester or ethical hacker, you are supposed to perform these testings on the web application, especially the web applications pen testing. It is used to identify, analyze, and report vulnerabilities such as in validations, that is especially the input validations, either maybe form tampering or any other thing, buffer overflows, code execution, okay, and command injection or SQL injection or authentication bypass. Okay, these kind of things are supposed to be tested in the web application pen testing, because these are the main sources of entry into the web application, especially to hack the web server or application or any other thing that is running with along with the web application. So basically, this testing the web application repeatedly by changing the testing methods is the best way to perform the web application pen testing. That is what the mean that you should not use the same test plan for every time that whenever you perform the web application pen testing. Every time you are supposed to keep changing of the test plans based upon the uh, output that you have observed during the previous test. The reason is here a concept called pesticide paradox. Okay, pesticide paradox is a very famous paradox in the testing, which means that you should not use the same test case every time when you are going for testing an application. That means that here the meaning of this pesticide paradox means you cannot uh, you cannot use same pesticide always to kill the insects or something, because if you use the same pesticide always, insects may build up the resistance towards that pesticide and they may not die for some time, for after some time. So this is what the idea behind the pesticide paradox. That means you should not use the same test case. So for that, what you are supposed to do is you are supposed to change the test cases depending upon the output that you have observed previously. So, so based on that, you are supposed to do this particular pen testing application. That is, in this, whatever the thing you are supposed to observe is, first one is port scanning. You are supposed to do web application pen testing cycle will be like this. First, you are supposed to do the port scanning. Port scanning in the sense perform the port scan to identify the services running on the target system. Vulnerabilities verification. That means there will be two categories will be there. One is known vulnerabilities and second one is unknown vulnerabilities. Known vulnerabilities in the sense you know the version of the application, you know the version of the web server, you know the version of the operating system, and there will be a CVS repository will be there, where you will be having the vulnerability information and vulnerability types, in which application you have what kind of vulnerabilities, how can you exploit those vulnerabilities using either Metasploit or any other thing. There is a clear directory is available that if you find any such kind of vulnerability in the web server or web application that you are using, then you can directly use that particular vulnerability related payloads and you can exploit the target. So this is what they call known vulnerabilities. Unknown vulnerabilities will be known only during the running of the web application. While running on the real platform, and if you perform various if you try to go for various test plans during the running, then you may come across some vulnerabilities. So that is called unknown vulnerabilities. Usually at the time of testing, you may not be knowing, but during the running or during the working with the application, you will be coming to know. So that is called unknown vulnerabilities. Usually whenever these unknown vulnerabilities are identified, obviously that will be recorded. So for the next time, it will become the known vulnerability, like that. So this vulnerability verification, identify known vulnerabilities in the target system, test and fix the issues if it is there. So that is, as a penetration tester, you are supposed to make the recommendation or you are supposed to make the fixing of these particular issues. Next is provide recommendations, suggest possible remedies to fix the identified vulnerabilities. Obviously, you have to suggest what is the patch or what is the thing that you are supposed to use to fix these particular issues. This is the web application pen testing flow, because a web application is a very complex structure and it involves many things. For example, if you look at Microsoft or IBM or many other things, there exists the website may look very simple in the first page, but it involves so much information from the beginning of their organization to till now. Whatever the information, whatever the notifications, whatever the software they develop, whatever the hardware they develop, specifications they develop, drivers they develop, or any system software they develop, anything which is developed by the organization will be kept in that particular website. You at any time or any year, you may refer to that particular website and you can get the related information. That means a huge information will be stored in the websites, and also in the various forms that particular thing will be presented. Okay, and also you might have, for example, you might have created a Gmail account or email account maybe 6 years back or 4 years back or 5 years back, but I have started my Yahoo Mail account in 1998, but till now I'm using the same Yahoo Mail account. There is no change in that. Okay, so that means even the years together, the same login has to be maintained, same information has to be maintained, previous records has to be maintained. Like huge information has to be maintained. Okay, I can refer to any of my mail which I received in the 2005 or 2000 or year 2006. I should be in a position to browse it. That means that much information I should possess. That means that much information must be provided by the corresponding web application servers. So that means it is not simply writing a PHP code or HTML code or it may be anything, but for this you need to have a systematic management must be there to get whatever the information at whatever the time you want. So this is what we call content management systems. Many of the content management systems may be used, like WordPress or many other things may be used in the web applications. So that is the reason we have to go for a systematic testing plan, such as web application pen testing flow. The web application pen testing flow will be like this. Define the objective first of all. So whatever the action you do, first of all, you are supposed to define the objective. That means for what purpose you are doing this particular pen testing. That means you are supposed to get sign off from the organization, and also you are supposed to sign off that particular objectives. Only you are supposed to prepare the test plan pertaining to that objective. Then only that work can be done correctly. So first you are supposed to define the objective. According to the definition of the objective, then you are supposed to gather the information. After gathering the information, the first test that you are supposed to do is configuration management test. As we have seen, the servers may be configured or services may be configured, but it may be configured with the default settings. So this configuration management testing is the first step to be done in the web application pen testing. Next, once the configuration is fine, then you have to go for authentication testing. This is the entry point where the web applications may be hacked. So authentication testing to be done. Next, once the authentication is successful, a session will be created. So a session management testing to be performed then. Then in the session management, whether you can spoof the session IDs or you can insert the session IDs or can you get any session ID via cookies, this kind of things you are supposed to test it. Then authorization testing. Authorization and authentication. What is the difference between this authentication and authorization? Authentication means it's an identity. That means it's a valid identity that you are supposed to use it. Authorization means only authorization require authentication, and this authorization in the sense you can enter into a system with your login ID, but you cannot access all the services that are available in the login. It is just like authentication is nothing but you are having a valid identity card. Okay, any student of the any branch student of our JIT University can show their identity card and can enter into the campus. So this is authentication. You are an authenticated person to enter into the campus. Once after entering into the campus, you may not authorize to enter into the system administrator room. Okay, so even though you are an authenticated person in the campus, but you are not authorized. So that means authentication is not nothing is itself is not the entry ticket for everything. Okay, so you are an authenticated person, but you are not authorized. That means there is a restriction. Okay, there is a restriction, and access matrix will be there. According to the access matrix, even though you are authenticated, you are not authorized to use some services, or you are not authorized to use. You may be authorized to make use of some other services. So this is what we call authorization and authentication difference. So first authentication will be tested with a simple username and password, that is login username and password. And authorization is nothing but checking for the access control, access matrices. Okay. Next one is business logic testing. Once these are things are over, then there may be a flaw exists in the program that they develop. So that is the reason you are supposed to check the business logic. In this business logic, after this business logic testing, because the business logic will explore sometimes you may write some statements that may directly access the operating system or that may directly access the memory, thereby it may lead to buffer overflows or something. So that is the reason you are supposed to check the business logic testing. Next one is data validation testing. This data validation, obviously, once you check the business logic is fine, then is there any data or junk data that may be supplied by the hacker so that your business logic may be violated? So such kind of testing will be done via data validation testing. Next one is web services testing. Web services are the data exchanges, XML based data exchange services between application to the application. So you are supposed to check these particular web services because web services will ease the data transfer between the applications. So the reason many of the big websites like IBM sites or Microsoft, who are having the vast information which is need to be maintained from long time, they used to use these web services. So you are supposed to use the web services testing. Then the modern websites are using the AJAX, asynchronous JavaScript and XML. So AJAX testing is also to be performed to get any information or to get any leakages in the web application. Finally, you are supposed to document all the findings that you have made in the previous steps. Then you have to provide the correct recommendations so that the corresponding patches may be developed and may be updated at the user level. So this is the web application pen testing flow. So I have told you this web application pen testing flow in a normal way. Now we'll see in detailed manner. First one is information gathering. How you will use this information gathering or how to get this information. First one is you are supposed to analyze the robot.txt. Okay, analyze robot.txt. How you will get this analyze robot.txt? You may use the GNU wget tool to retrieve and analyze the robot.txt. Okay, it is to check allowed or disallowed directories on the website. So this particular robot.txt is especially used for that purpose. Next one is perform search engine reconnaissance. So you may get information on the via search engines, either via using the harvester tool or maybe any other tool where you can get the information about that domain or website. So this step identify issues of web application structure, error pages, if any, etc. So you use better you use some advanced search engine techniques like use advanced Google search strings such as site colon, okay, search operator, and then check for the cached pages. So these cached pages usually they have already browsed it previously, but it was remained in the cache. Okay, that website that web page may be changed in future, or that may be changed in frequently. But whatever the old referred web pages of the same site, are there that will be kept in the cache. So that cached pages are going to be searched and will be shown to you whenever you use the advanced search strings for to get information about the domain. Next one is identify application entry points. That is there any cookies are enabled or not? Is there any error codes are there? Usually, some error codes will reveal the information about why this error code has come and how to avoid this error code and information about the error code and all. So for this, you may use web scrub and Brubs proxy and OWASP, JDP, Tamper IE, which is to use the Internet Explorer tampering, tamper data for the Firefox. These are the various tools that you can use for this purpose. Next one is identify the web application. So probe the URLs, cached URLs, dictionary style searching, vulnerability scanning via Nmap. There will be Nmap scripts will be available. With that scripts, you may use this. You may check for the vulnerabilities, or you may use OpenVAS, or you may use Nessus tool, which are open source tools for the identification of the vulnerabilities. After doing that, analyze the output of head and options in the HTTP request. It shows the server software version, web browser version that you are using, scripting environment, OS used. This kind of information you will find in the application header. So usually the application header, with the application header itself, you will come to know whether what type of browser you use. So according to that, sometimes you may write the script. So that also is possible. That information can also be obtained with this step. The techniques such as DNS zone transfer, web-based DNS such as queries such as so these things will be obtained. These things will be obtained via this particular head and options in the HTTP request. So with the first step, you will come to know the allowed and disallowed directories. Next, with this reconnaissance, search engine reconnaissance, you may get the cache pages or error pages, and you will get the information about the entry point in the application via knowing that whether cookies available or not, cookies are enabled or not, or is there any error code available. This kind of information. Then you may get the information about the URL browsing and URL usages and any vulnerabilities via vulnerability scanning, and then you may get the information about the analyzing the output of head and options. So this is the first level of information that you gather. Next one is you may analyze the error codes like 401 code or 404 or many other codes that you see in the browsers, and at the same time pertaining to the application there may be some error codes available, especially in the PHP and MySQL. A lot of error codes will be shown. So these error codes may also be giving you the information about the problems that are in the system. Next is test for recognized file types, extensions, directories. Because some applications will allow only the images, some applications will use only the flash as the file, or some applications may use the PDF as the files. So what are the file types, extensions, directories are used, that also you are supposed to check. Then examine source of available pages. It provides clues about the web application development. That means source of the available pages means they have used maybe JavaScript, maybe using VBScript or Ajax or maybe any other scripting or source that you may use. Sometimes they may develop the code and may forget to comment that. That may be kept in comments and might have not cleared it by the time of deployment. So these kind of things you may come to know by observing the source code. And sometimes in the source code itself, they may also mention the root directories name or file names or many other things that you find in the source code. So with that also, hacker may perform the educated guess. Then thereby they may use some fabricated URLs and may get the information. Next one is TCP or ICMP and service fingerprinting. So TCP and ICMP services are running on the target computer or target system will be known via Nmap, Presso, and fingerprinting tools such as AMAP, etc. It gives the information about the web application associated with the service ports. So this is the information that you will gather at the first level. Next one is, once you gather the information, the first thing that you can do is configuration management testing. In the configuration management, if your web application supports HTTPS, then perform the SSL or TLS testing. It discloses the confidential information, that is the security level that they are providing, or security certificate versions they are providing, or SSL or TLS certificates that they are providing, and version numbers. Because some old versions may be having the severe problems or vulnerabilities or threats, such as heartbleed vulnerability, and which is a very famous threat that is available with the TLS old version. So that may be that is which is called known vulnerability that may be exploited by the hacker. So it discloses the confidential information about the SSL and TLS certificate and DISO certificates. Then for this you may use Nmap or Nessus tool to get this information. Next is perform infrastructure configuration management testing. Here information configuration management means infrastructure configuration management means on what infrastructure that application was launched. That means web services, web servers or operating systems, etc. So it discloses source code of the application, web servers, servers banners, etc. Next one is perform application configuration management testing. It discloses the information of log files, default error codes, and other information. Test for file extension handling. It discloses the information about the access credentials, whether a particular file can be accessed by a particular user or not. These kind of things you may get it. Next, for test for old backups. That means it discloses the source code sometimes. The hackers, the system developers may use some backups. In that, sometimes they may find source codes, they may place source codes or installation paths or passwords for the applications, old passwords, some database related information. So test for old backups if any present in the web application. Test for web page, test for applications, domain interfaces, etc. It discloses the admin interfaces, perform directory and file enumeration for this in this particular category. Next one is test for HTTP method and cross-site tracing. So this is the cross-site tracing is actually is especially used for disclosing of the credentials of the legitimate users. So you are supposed to identify whether this kind of thing is available in this or not. Usually, you may use some standard tools for this, like Brupsuit or any other vulnerability testing tools. So for this purpose. Next is authentication testing. Basically, the authentication testing will be performed in order to test the credentials of the users, that is login credentials especially. That is test for vulnerable passwords, common password structures, and password resets. Here you may perform that is hacker may perform the testing like brute force attacks or dictionary based attacks to reveal the passwords. And if the passwords were stored in the hashed format, then they may use the hash dump and may get the information. Use social engineering or cracking secret questions if used. This kind of technique you may use for this. Cracking secret questions in the sense you may go for resetting of the password if you know the username. You may be knowing the username of the target and you want to go for resetting of the password. Whenever you are resetting the password, that sometimes the web application may ask you to reset. Before resetting, it may ask you a secret question to answer. So whenever you know the secret question, then secret question is usually like what is your birth date or what is your birthplace. With this kind of things, people may select the questions which are somewhat easy, and you can, if you know about the person, you may enter it. So such kind of things the hacker will try first. Next one is a test for logout and browser cache management. It discloses the authentication vulnerabilities. That is just like after logout also, if you press the back button, again if it is going to the previous session, then obviously it is very easy for the hacker to hold up your session or you hold up your login credentials. Next is test for CAPTCHA, discloses authentication vulnerabilities. Test for multiple factor authentication. Sometimes two-level authentication will be there. Username, after entering the password, you may get an OTP or this kind of thing. So it discloses multiple factor authentication vulnerabilities. Next one is test for race condition. Here, race condition means the hacker will try to enter the application username and password from different computers at the same time. Okay, it is attempting to make simultaneous requests for login and check for application behavior. That means on multiple computers, he will open the web application. That is, hacker will open the web application and will enter the username and password in all the three computers at a time, and will try to log in at a time. That is simultaneous request. So sometimes this simultaneous request may reveal some information about the login credentials. So this is also be tested, or this is also be checked in the race condition. Next one is session management. Once the authentication testing is over, then you are supposed to move for the session management testing. In this, cookie tampering may result in session hijacking of legitimate users. So here, cookies are the will play a main role in the session management testing. So testing for cookie attributes is identify any cookie attributes are present, such as usually gather the cookie information to hijack the valid session. Usually this cookie testing or cookie identification will be done using WebScrab, Bruf proxy, or OWASP JAP tool. Okay, or previously what I have mentioned like Tamper IE, okay, Tamper data for Firefox. These kind of tools may be used for getting this. This will also spoof the traffic which is going on the network, and they will present you the information. Anyhow, I will present the Brubsuit video afterwards, so you may go through that. Test for session fixation attack. That means here the hacker can fix one session token, and with that only any user can perform the web application management or web application interaction. So make a request to the site and observe for session vulnerabilities using WebScrap tool for this purpose. Test for exposed session vulnerabilities, that is, gather the information of session tokens related clues. Test for cross-site request forgery, examine the URLs in the restricted area to test for the cross-site request forgery. So you may get the session information or session management related information by performing these testings. Okay. Next is once the session testing is over, authorization testing. Authorization in the sense, as I told you, authorization requires authentication. That means first the hacker has to crack the username and password. Then he has to check for the session, or he may use some other medium like man in middle or any other thing to gain the session. Then you have to go for authorization. In this authorization, especially the path traversal, that means that a hacker will try to browse various paths, okay, and will gain the information, confidential information, such as he may go to the root directories, he may go through the log directories, he may go through some other thing. He will try to check for that. Next is test for HTTP request tampering. As I told you that as we discussed in the session hijacking, as in what form you send the HTTP request, in the same form you will receive the HTTP response. If you might have sent the splitted HTTP request, then you will get the splitted HTTP responses. So check for bypassing the authorization. Next is test for cookie parameter tampering. It may be done using web spidering tools. So check for the cookie parameter tampering if it is possible. Next, check for privilege escalation. Privilege escalation means here this is the access matrix. I told you that authorization is a kind of access matrix. Even though you are authorized, you are authenticated, you may not be eligible for using various services. So test for privilege escalation. Check for access to resources and functionalities to escalate the privileges. For this, you are supposed to struggle a lot for this. Actually, for escalating the privileges, it's not that much easy. But if you have a vulnerable application, then you can easily escalate the privileges. Next one is data validation testing. In this, once the authorization is over, then data validation need to be done. So test for possibility of reflected cross-site scripting. Test for stored cross-site scripting. We have seen stored cross-site scripting. That means we may store some script in the forms. If the form validation is not correct, that script may be executed at the server end or database end. Test for it shows that actually this particular cross-site scripting storage will show the sensitive information such as authorization tokens for ongoing sessions and all. Next for test for document object model DOM based cross-site scripting. Test for cross-site flashing. Test for or perform the SQL injection testing and perform LDAP injection testing. Perform LDAP injection testing. Perform ORM. That is called object relational mapping. So usually this object relational mapping testing will reveal the information about the database relations or that is table relations and relation between the attributes. Okay. Next is perform XML injection technique. Perform SSI. SSI means server side include. Usually server side scripting will be there. Server side scripting in the sense that will execute at the server level, which is called common gateway interface information, that kind of thing. Next is perform XPath injection testing. That is, it is especially used for checking the paths, path traversals and all. Next is perform IMAP or SMTP injection testing. Perform code injection testing. Perform OS commanding. So OS commanding usually will be tested in various ways. Sometimes the usage of the default or the usage of the system related or operating system related packages in the development environment may also give a chance for the users or the attackers to send a command line information, especially the OS commanding information. Say for example, in Java programming, if you want to open a notepad file from the Java program, so for this, what you use is there is a tool called, or there is a package called java.lang package. In that there is a class called system class. Okay, and in that there is a interface called runtime interface. You may use the runtime interface, and you will get the system runtime. Once you get the system runtime, and you may use execute function of the particular system runtime, and you may execute the notepad. So system.exec, that is runtime.exec of notepad, then whenever you run the Java program, then automatically notepad will be opened. That means here, since that program is using the OS dependent classes and interfaces in writing that particular program, it is since you are sending OS command, then it is a possible there will be a possibility that it may reveal information about the operating system, or it may execute some services on the operating system. So this is the way performing of the OS commanding will be done. Next is performing the buffer overflow testing. So that is when you know the source code and all development environment, obviously the buffer overflow testing can be done. Next, perform incubated vulnerability testing. Incubated in the sense the vulnerabilities that are hidden in the development environment and but was not explored. Okay, if such kind of things are there, you are supposed to check for that, which are called, you can say, known vulnerabilities, you can say. Next is test for HTTP splitting. As I told previously, whenever you send HTTP request in a splitted way, you will get the responses also in the splitted way. So you are supposed to go for testing of the HTTP splitting of the request, and with this you will find any lapses in the data validation. Can you do everything in one at once? No, it is not possible to do. You are supposed to use various open source tools for doing all these testing. But one tool is there which is called Brupsuit, where you can do some limited number of testings, limited number of actions with that. That may not cover all these testings, but some limited number of things that you can do that I will discuss in that video whenever I make this particular grub suit tool. Next one is after this the checking for the denial of service. As I told, as we discussed in the previous lectures in the denial of service, this concept of denial of service may occur in various ways. That is either via command injection or either via SQL injection or either via software faults or development faults or either via physical layer, either via data link layer, or either via application layer. So in any way you can get this protection. So for this test for SQL wildcard attacks. SQL wildcard attacks means some wildcard symbols will be used so that it will be escaped in the process while sanitizing the input. So that will be escaped while checking by the web application. So that kind of wildcard attacks is going to be checked. Next, test for locking of the customer accounts. As we discussed previously, if the wrong password is entered for 4 times or 5 times, the customer account may be blocked. So that kind of locking customer account testing will be done. Next is test for buffer overflows, test for user specified object allocation. Actually this test for user specified object allocation is used for checking the maximum number of objects an application can handle. So try to overload the number of objects to be handled and check the performance or check the responses that is sent by the web server, and you can make an assessment that what is the capability of this particular web application for a particular user. Next one is a test for user input as a loop counter. So there is no limit on the number of logins you made or number of wrong passwords you enter. I may write a small shell script which will run for 1,000 times and will change the password every time and will test for the logging. So like that, I may make a loop counter and I will go for testing of the logging. So test for user input as a loop counter. In such cases, the web application has to think that somebody is performing some attack. Then it has to stop there itself, whether your application is having such facility or not to be tested. Next to be checked is test for local disk exhaustion technique. That means you are supposed to perform, you are supposed to request many times that the local disks, that is saving of the file, retrieving, okay, and try to exhaust that particular disk related things and see the results. Okay. Next one is test for programming flaws and test for storing too much data in the session and see what is the reply that you will get with the application. So all these things will give you the information about possibility of attacking the or possibility of conducting the denial of service. Next, we'll move on to the next testing, which is called web services testing, because web services are the exchanges between the XML based data exchanges between the applications. So basically, the web services architecture will be like this. This I have taken from the Certified in Ethical Hackers version 9 material. So in this HTTP and .NET TCP channel or any other channel, in that these are the XML based services, XML, SOAP, WSDL, that is web services descriptive languages, schema, web services advertising, etc. Many other services are available. On top of this, you will be having web services policy. Next is web services security. In that, web services security policies will be there, and many other security signatures and digital signatures are available. Then web services work process will be there. So among all these things, you need to know the XML schema first, then SOAP, how it will work and all, then WSDL and its schemas, and what are the document object model they have used. With this only, you will come to know what type of security mechanism they have used and what type of service policies they have adopted. So with this information, we can go for, first of all, gather the web services information, that is about the WSDL version, what they are using, what type of specification they are using, test for WSDL related vulnerabilities, test for XML structure, whether they have properly structured or not. If there is no, if there exists loose structuring, or if there exists unnecessary elements defined, then you may make use of those elements. Next is test XML content level structure, not SML. This is XML content level structure. Test for HTTP GET parameters. Test for HTTP GET parameters. Whether because many of the data exchanges via XML can be done via GET parameter. So test for GET parameter exchanges. Next, test SOAP attachments. This is object access protocol. SOAP attachments to be tested with the, which is attached with the XML structure. Next one is perform the reply testing. What type of reply you will receive when you send some characters or something you in the GET parameters and with the SOAP attachments, you go for testing of the reply, checking for the reply testing. This is what the web services testing. Finally, you have to go for the AJAX testing. That is test for AJAX, asynchronous JavaScript and XML. Then perform the HTML and JavaScript files and use a proxy to observe the traffic. Especially the Brubsuit is mainly used. And in open source version of the Brubsuit, you will not find all these features, but you will find in the paid version. And there exists some other popular or the what you call the proprietary tools where you can perform this AJAX testing. So this is after doing this AJAX testing, you need to go for service. You need to go for documenting of all the findings that you have made in all these testings. Then you can have sufficient information that how this particular application functions, what are the loopholes, what are the advantages, what are the technical faults, and all the things. If you are a penetration tester of an organization, then you will suggest the suitable actions to be taken and suitable patches to be made and to be installed. And if you are an ethical hacker, you are a freelancer, you can also go to that and you can test it and you may give the report along with the suggestions that you provide. But actually the hacker will also do the same kind of thing, but he will do from the other end and will get the information and will mainly use this particular information for damaging the web application. So this is what we call web application penetration testing. This is the pen testing flow. In the next lecture, we'll see some countermeasures and some important tools that we'll use for the web application penetration testing.